everyone, welcome back to Crochet and Crime, where I crochet and I tell true crime stories. Today we'll be talking about Casey Anthony, the most hated woman in America. And this story does get kind of graphic, and it does talk about child murder and like a whole bunch of other things, like family issues and all this other stuff. So if you do not like any of that, any of those topics, please click away from this video. And yeah, let's get into it. Casey Anthony was known as a very energetic and outgoing young girl. Her family moved to Orlando, Florida whenever she was in her teen years, and as Casey got older, her family and her friends noticed she had gotten into a big phase of lying, and she would lie over very big and small things, and then they progressed to like even bigger lies. And in high school, she began to resent her family and she began ignoring them. Around the time that Casey was going to graduate, her parents planned this big party. They wanted to celebrate their daughter having this huge accomplishment. And when they asked Casey like when her graduation was or like where her graduation was, she just kind of brushed them off. She wouldn't give them a direct answer, or she would lie and say that she didn't know. And so her parents finally had enough, and they called up her school, and they were like, "Hey, when is Casey gonna graduate, and where's the graduation gonna be?" And the principal had to inform them that Casey was not gonna graduate. She was not showing up to classes, and she was failing all her grades. And so her parents were reasonably upset, and instead of redeeming herself and going back to her classes, Casey just dropped out of high school. Casey got a job at Universal Studios, and then she fell in love with Jesse Grund. And later on in 2005, Casey finds out that she is pregnant. And she tells her friend, and she's like, "I don't want to have an abortion. I want to give this baby up, because like I can't take care of a baby right now." Because she was like busy partying and all this other stuff. She didn't want to take care of a baby. She hid the pregnancy for about 7 months before she told her parents, and her parents were rightfully upset that she didn't tell them. And she was a petite girl, like she was very little, and she was wearing baggy clothes so that it would hide her bump easily, but like I guess it got to the point where like she couldn't hide it anymore and she had to tell her parents. And so her parents were very upset, but they were like, "Okay, yeah, let's figure this baby thing out." And Casey told them that she wanted to give the baby up for adoption, but her parents were like, "Nuh-uh. What's the matter with you? Come on." So she has to now raise the baby. But not by herself. Like her parents were like telling her that they would be there for her the entire time. But they were basically saying, "You have to take care of this child." They didn't tell Casey's brother that she was pregnant until like a couple days before her due date. And her brother was rightfully upset because like he should have the right to know that he's going to be an uncle. And so he actually didn't show up to the birth. He was like super upset with the family for them like keeping this big secret from him. And so he didn't show up to the birth of his niece. On August 9th of 2005, Casey gave birth to her daughter, Kaylee. And when the family asked Casey who the father was, she gave them many different answers, and to this day, no one knows who the father was. On New Year's Eve, Jesse proposed to Casey, and she said yes. So later on, Casey tells her parents that she hired a babysitter nicknamed Zanny. Not the medication, I don't think. It's a medication, right? Yeah. Anyways, her parents were kind of iffy about this Zanny lady because they had never met her or talked to her, let alone see her. And after that whole spiel about Zanny, a DNA test was done to see if Kaylee was Jesse's daughter. And she was not. Dun dun dun. We knew, but still, like. So Jesse, being the sweet man he is, still wanted to make it work just so he can see Kaylee and help Casey raise Kaylee. But in May of 2006, he broke off the engagement, saying that Casey's behavior was becoming more erratic and she was becoming a different person. After the breakup, Casey goes out and starts partying and trying to find a new man to be her baby's stepdad. And she finds a man named Tony, who is an aspiring DJ. So Casey and Tony become a thing, and she even brought Kaylee over to Tony's apartment to hang out. So one day, Casey's family gets into a big argument, and Casey packs a bag and brings Kaylee with her. And what we know is that on June 16th of 2008 is the last day that Kaylee was seen alive. Casey said she would be gone for a work-related trip, and she went to Tony's apartment, but Kaylee wasn't with her. And she came up with a million excuses. She was with Zanny, she was with Jesse, she's, I don't know, on the moon. So Casey ended up staying at her boyfriend's apartment for a month, and her mom and grandparents were asking where she was and where Kaylee was. And she came up with lie after lie. And where was Kaylee, you might ask? Let me tell ya where she wasn't. With Zanny. Why? Because she didn't exist. When Casey's mother confronted her about Kaylee, Casey made up a lie saying that Kaylee was kidnapped by Zanny. And so her mother called the police 3 different times before an officer came up and questioned Casey. They searched everywhere for this Zanny lady, but they couldn't find her. Because she didn't exist. When Casey said she worked at Universal with Zanny, police looked into it, and Casey hadn't worked at Universal in a while. She was actually fired after being there for just a few months. So when the police found that out, instead of telling Casey that they knew she was lying, they brought her to Universal and was like, hey, yeah, show us around, show us what Zanny did. And so Casey walked in there, all high and mighty, walking around like she knew where she was going, which she wasn't. And so she took them around in like a whole bunch of different like circles, and she ended up getting lost, and so she turned around and was like, I don't work here. Casey was arrested on July 16th, and she was charged with neglect of a child, obstruction of justice, and making false claims. Casey's parents gave her a car a few months back so she could have like transportation for her and her kid. And one day she abandoned it at a bank, and when her dad found out, he was rightfully pissed. So he went to go pick it up, and it was disgusting. Like, it smelled absolutely awful. And even the mechanic was like, dude, it smells like a dead body in here. What the heck? And now, when police dogs sniffed the car, they went apeshit when they smelled the trunk. The police looked inside the trunk and they saw staining on the carpet that was the size of a small child. And they tested the hair that was left there, and it came back as Kaylee's. And the hair was in a decomposition stage. I didn't know hair could do that, but I guess it was in the decomposition stage. Police searched the family computer, and they see that someone searched up how to make chloroform. And when the police asked Cindy, or Casey's mother, who did that, and so Cindy took the bullet for Casey and said that she was looking up how to make chlorophyll because her dog ate bamboo. Even though that's not what chlorophyll is, but I don't know. It came out that Cindy was actually not at home at the time that the search was made. Casey was. And so Casey's bail was set at $500K and was paid off, and Casey was set free. On December 11th, a utility worker spots a skull on the side of the road, and so he calls the police 3 different times, and the police come and see that there's not only a skull, but a bag of bones and a laundry basket with a baby blanket in it that had blood on it. The police saw that this belonged to Kaylee Anthony, and the police searched the Anthony home and saw that they had the same exact laundry basket that they saw on the side of the road. And those laundry baskets only come in pairs, and the Anthony family only had 1 pair of the laundry baskets. So all fingers were pointed at Casey Anthony, and Casey was now being charged with first-degree murder. On trial, Casey was confronted about her lying, and Casey said that at 8 years old her father began to sexually abuse her, and she learned to lie from that. So she is now blaming her father for her murder. This trial goes all over the place, focusing on clearing the dad's name, focusing on clearing Casey's name, and it just goes off the tracks. Casey was found not guilty for the murder of her child. She was sentenced to 1 year and had to pay a $1,000 fine, but that was it. She was out of there. She was released on July 17th of 2011. And now, Casey has come out with so many documentaries and books and interviews, and she's just wiping her sweat with her money. She's living it. I'm gonna finish this up and I'll be right back. Alright, here's the finished product. It is a little bag, and I love it so much. Look at the back too. Ah! So yeah, this story was absolutely crazy, and it was like, all the details were just absolutely wild. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys next week. So yeah, I hope you have a great day. Bye!